Welcome to The Explainer. I am incredibly excited to have you with us today because we're looking at an absolute masterclass in deep tech survival. We're going to examine exactly how a highly specialized startup, DBbun LLC, led by Uri Kartoun, navigates the incredibly intense, high-stakes world of federal procurement and rapid technology deployment, all over just a single wild week in June 2026. If you've ever wondered what it actually takes to push cutting-edge intellectual property out into the real world while actively dodging the pitfalls that sink most early-stage companies, well, you're in the right place. Let's get right into it.
So here's our quick roadmap for today. 1. From readable to runnable. 2. Heat waves and patent intelligence. 3. Defense, autonomy, and DARPA. And finally, number 4, the art of triage.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this concept is the absolute beating heart of DBbun's entire operation. They are pioneering a patent-pending idea called executable companions from digital objects. Think for a second about how much information out there exists purely to be read. Dense technical reports, 100-page scientific papers, complex patent filings. DBbun's core intellectual property is a total paradigm shift here. They're taking those passive, static digital objects and transforming them into active, runnable utility. We're talking about taking a standard document and turning it into actual code, synthetic datasets, and interactive decision support artifacts. They affectionately call this shift going from readable to runnable.
Section 1. From readable to runnable. The core technology.
To really wrap our heads around how an innovator builds a narrative around their central thesis, we have to look at the massive gap in utility between old-school static reports and DBbun's dynamic outputs. Think about what the world is used to: read-only narratives, static figures, inert data. You read it, you try your best to understand it, and, well, that's kind of where it stops, right? Now contrast that with DBbun's approach: executable models, simulation generation, and interactive specifications. They map claims and components directly from a text into something a machine or a planner can actively test and use. It's literally the difference between staring at a flat 2D blueprint and instantly spawning a fully 3D, testable simulation of that building.
And pushing a massive paradigm shift like that, it requires relentless momentum. Just consider the timeline of a single week in the life of a tech entrepreneur pushing their IP into the world. On June 19th, they're aggressively triaging federal challenges. Jump to June 22nd, they're releasing a DARPA Lift dataset. By June 25th, they're finalizing a huge tabletop exercise for NOAA. And the very next day, June 26th, they're strategizing a response to an arcade feedback letter. It's a day-by-day, sometimes hour-by-hour grind to integrate this IP directly into federal workflows.
All right, Section 2, heat waves and patent intelligence. Wildly different applications. Now, what's really fascinating here is seeing how this exact same underlying runnable technology gets applied to two federal problem spaces that honestly couldn't be more different from one another. To ground us in actual document reality, we can look at DBbun's work on the Boston Heat Shield Situation Manual. They built this specifically for a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA challenge. But here's the kicker. Instead of just writing up another boring report about climate change, they synthesized their data into a complete situation manual for an extreme heat and power stress tabletop exercise. They absolutely did not just summarize data, they engineered a practical, synthetic planning tool. The tabletop exercise they designed literally forces decision-makers to grapple with realistic heat outlooks, cooling center access, and massive grid power stress. They explicitly programmed in variables for high-risk residents and multilingual communications. And this is super cool. They meticulously structured the data around environmental justice neighborhoods, carefully ensuring historical redlining context was properly used as a synthetic planning parameter. It is a living, breathing exercise with risk boards and decision logs totally derived from static data.
But that very same week, they turn around and apply this tech to a completely different universe. They prepare a capability statement for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, specifically targeting patent reclassification services. What's brilliant here is DBbun's strategic positioning. They don't walk in and pitch themselves as some magic, fully autonomous AI that's going to replace everybody's job. No way. Instead, they smartly position their document intelligence as a hybrid workflow. AI-assisted, but crucially, human-reviewed. They tied the technology directly to concrete needs, like CPC reclassification, evidence linking, and quality control. It's an incredibly mature, grounded way to sell cutting-edge AI to a major federal agency.
Section 3. Defense, Autonomy, and DARPA. Scaling the complexity.
So, we've seen public health and we've seen patents.
But how does an innovator translate this readable to runnable tech for high-stakes, military-level problem-solving? Well, fierce federal competitions require some serious engineering. Take DBbun's preparation for the DARPA Triage challenge. To compete here, they're building what they call a simulated data scaffold. Because, when you're trying to win defense contracts, you have to definitively prove your technology works before you ever get access to the real, classified, or sensitive data. DBbun stays alive in these dogfights by generating highly complex synthetic scaffolds and running rigorous compliance testing against the organizer's exact frameworks.
And guys, the sheer volume of this defense work is just staggering. Take a look at DARPA Lift V1.2. DBun is crunching a data set of 100,000 drone designs and 1 million synthetic missions. I mean, 1 million. At the exact same time, for the AAL DevX autonomy pitch, they have to condense all this massive technical complexity, plus key personnel and business models, into a strict pitch requirement of under 6 minutes, all while actively tracking defense acquisition marketplaces like TradeWinds and Platform One. If you contrast this massive, high-volume drone simulation with the nuanced public health tabletop exercise we just looked at, it perfectly highlights the extreme versatility of this executable companion concept. Finally, Section 4, the art of triage, strategic survival. Which brings us to what might just be the most vital business lesson of this entire explainer: how a startup actually survives the noise. Every professional, but especially founders, faces a daily avalanche of distractions disguised as opportunities. During this week, DBbun applied what we can call their focus filter. They actively passed on multiple opportunities. They prioritized targets that actually reward their core tech: synthetic data generation, decision support, and clear SBIR-style funding. And just as importantly, they ruthlessly avoid the noise. They reject solicitations that are unpaid, lack funding clarity, demand unnecessary travel, or are just geared more towards student researchers. It makes you think about your own daily workflow, doesn't it? How tight is your focus filter? Are you aggressively cutting out those weak-fit opportunities to protect your core mission?
So the crucial point here is, how do you handle it when your absolute best effort still gets rejected? On June 26th, DBbun received a not selected letter for a white paper they submitted to an intelligence community challenge called Arcade. Their internal reaction is a total masterclass in founder psychology. Instead of panicking, they completely reframe the rejection. They recognized that in a highly constrained white paper format, the reviewers simply wanted more technical architecture detail. It wasn't that the core idea was bad, it was just a formatting constraint.
It beautifully captures that classic problem-reaction dynamic. First, the reality. The feedback cited their strengths but asked for more extraction and validation detail. Then, the reaction, DBbun calmly decides to use their pending patent narrative and short technical videos strategically to shore up credibility for the next time around. They even explicitly note in their internal log to avoid sounding defensive or implying the reviewers were wrong. That right there, that is emotional intelligence winning out over panic. And that is exactly how you build resilience in the face of federal rejection.
So we've seen how DBbun takes completely inert text and transforms it into million-mission drone simulations and comprehensive extreme heat tabletops, all while ruthlessly triaging their time just to survive the week. It's a truly incredible blueprint for pushing deep tech out into the world. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with the question to apply to your own life. Look around your desk, your hard drive, your team's processes. What static, passive information in your life desperately needs to become runnable? Thanks so much for exploring this masterclass with me, and keep learning.